Kids. I'm here to read another story. Today, we're going to read about Thomas the Tank Engine and his friends. And this story is about Thomas and Trevor. I think you probably know about Thomas the Tank Engine and his friends. Here's pictures of him and all of his friends. This is Thomas, he has a number 1. This is Edward, he has number 2. This is Gordon, who's number 3. This is Henry, who's number 4. James is number 5. And Percy is train number 6. Trevor's not in this picture, but you'll get to meet him as soon as we start the story. This is the story of Thomas and Trevor. And here they are. Thomas is the blue one, Trevor's the green one, and he's what's called a traction engine, which means he doesn't run on tracks, he runs in the field like a tractor. Trevor, the traction engine, enjoys living in the vicarage orchard on the island of Sodor. Edward, the blue engine, once helped save him from being turned to scrap, so now Trevor lives at the vicarage, and the two engines are great friends. Okay, that wasn't Thomas, that's Edward. Edward comes to see Trevor every day. Sometimes Trevor is sad because he doesn't have enough work to do. I do like to keep busy all the time, Trevor sighed one day, and I do like company, especially children's company. Cheer up, said Edward. Sir Topham Hatt has work for you at his new harbor. I'm to take you to meet Thomas today. Oh, exclaimed Trevor happily, a harbor, the seaside. Children, that will be lovely. Trevor's freight car was coupled behind Edward, and they set off to meet Thomas. He's getting on the freight car so that he can go to a different place. Thomas was on his way to the harbor with a trainload of metal pilings. They were needed to make the harbor wall firm and safe. Hello, Thomas, said Edward. This is Trevor. He's a friend of mine. He's a traction engine. Thomas eyed the newcomer doubtfully. A what engine? A traction engine, explained Trevor. I run on roads instead of rails. Can you take me to the harbor, please? Sir Topham Hatt has a job for me. Yes, of course, replied Thomas, but he was still puzzled. I guess he had never met a traction engine before. Workmen coupled Trevor's freight car to Thomas's train, and soon they were ready to start their journey. I'm glad that Sir Topham Hatt needs me, called Trevor. I don't have enough to do sometimes, although I can work anywhere in orchards, on farms, in scrapyards, even in harbors. But you don't run on rails, puffed Thomas. I'm a traction engine. I don't need rails to be useful, replied Trevor. You wait and see. Sounds like they were having a little bit of an argument about what kind of trains they were. When they reached the harbor, they found everything in confusion. Freight cars had been derailed, blocking the line, and stone slabs lay everywhere. We must get these pilings through, said Thomas's driver. They're essential, Trevor, he said. We need you to drag them round this mess. The driver is giving instructions. Just the sort of job I like, replied Trevor. Now you'll see, Thomas. Now you'll see what a traction engine can do. Trevor was as good as his word. First he dragged the stones clear with chains, and then he towed the pilings into positions. Who needs rails? He muttered cheerfully to himself. Later, Thomas brought his two coaches, Annie and Clarabelle, to meet Trevor. Thomas was most impressed. Now I understand how useful a traction engine can be. Thomas's coaches were full of children, and Trevor gave them rides along the harbor. Of all the jobs he did that day, he liked this one the best. He's very kind, said Annie. He kind of reminds me of Thomas, said Clarabelle. Everyone was sorry when it was time for Trevor to go. Thomas pulled him to the junction. A small tear came into Trevor's eye. Thomas pretended not to see and whistled gaily to make Trevor happy. I'll come and see if I can, Thomas promised. The vicar will look after you, and there's plenty of work for you now at the orchard, but we may need you at the harbor again someday. That would be wonderful, Trevor said happily. That evening, Trevor stood in the orchard, remembering his new friend Thomas, the harbor, and most of all the children. Then he went happily to sleep in the shed at the bottom of the orchard. See, his eyes are closed and he's going to sleep for the night. And that's the end of the story of Thomas and Trevor.